A late night trade just got struck with the Chicago Cubs acquiring Michael Soroka from the Washington Nationals as the Cubs look to become one of the best teams in all of Major League Baseball. A game behind the Brewers in the NL Central, they're still one of the best teams with one of the best records in all of baseball, with over a 95% chance to make the playoffs, according to Fangraphs. They're hoping that Michael Soroka can solidify their rotation, and if push comes to shove into the postseason, he can revert back to a bullpen role and be even more helpful out of the bullpen for a Cubs team that is really looking to make waves and win another World Series this century. The Cubs acquire a former top 100 prospect, a second place Rookie of the Year voting, an All Star, a top 10 Cy Young Award finisher, and someone who could be a solid piece towards a deep playoff run. In exchange for Soroka's services, the Nationals tried to bolster their farm system a little bit, understanding their competitive window isn't necessarily this year, and try to focus on the future so they can win a championship not in 2025, but 2026 and beyond. In this video, we'll dive headfirst, talk about all the players involved in this deal, and also give you some gut reaction trade grades for both the Washington Nationals and Chicago Cubs to see which team made it out, which team really should have gotten a little bit more, and see how these players are going to impact their teams both this year and in the long run. If you're interested in these kind of videos, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'm keeping up with all of the big trades that happen this trade deadline, so you will be one of the first to know and have that in-depth analysis about all the players involved in the deal. Without further ado, let's dive into this trade and see exactly what each player is bringing to the table. Michael Soroka is a former top 100 prospect back when he went by Mike Soroka with the Atlanta Braves, and in 2019, it seemed like he was breaking out. After a small cup of coffee in 2018, he put up a 6-WAR season, a 13-4 record with a 2.68 ERA. He finished 6th place in Cy Young voting, made the All-Star team, and finished 2nd place in the NL Rookie of the Year voting behind former Florida Gator and current slugger Pete Alonso. That year, he struck out 142 batters across 174 innings pitched. Things seemed really bright. And then things came crashing down, and in 2021 and 2022, he did not pitch a single game at the major league level due to injury. Came back in 2023 and really struggled, a 6.4 ERA across 32 1/3 innings pitched. Things just really did not look great. He transitioned to more of a hybrid role with the White Sox in 2024. He started 9 games, but pitched in 25 total, mostly in relief again. Did really well in relief, even though his ERA did not suggest it, a 4.74. It seemed like things were starting to come back a little bit in terms of his pitch velocity, pitch shape, his mechanics, and there seemed to be something there. He put a .7 WAR that season, which is surprising given that he had a subpar ERA and his fielding independent pitching metrics suggested that it kind of matched what it was. This year, Washington signed him to a $9 million contract for just 1 year, and they wanted to keep him as a starter and see how they could benefit their team that way. He's done really well so far, a .5 WAR, but of course with the Nationals a 3-8 record since they are not great this year, a 4.87 ERA, but that ERA doesn't tell all the story. His fielding independent pitching this year, which is a metric that looks to replace some of the fielding side of things, the luck side of things out of a pitcher's ERA, is a 4.12, which is better than his current ERA, suggesting that he's been a little bit unlucky this year, and his expected ERA or xERA is a 3.32, suggesting that he really should be having much better outcomes than he's actually having. His breaking balls are elite, and he strikes out a decent amount of batters. He doesn't walk a ton so far this year. He's got 25.4 K percentage and a 7 walk percentage. Definitely really solid. Hitters aren't barreling up the ball a ton, so he has the stuff to be a very solid pitcher. It's just the results haven't necessarily shown it in 81 1/3 innings pitched so far this year. The one concern with Soroka right now is that his velocity has dipped substantially over the past few starts. If you go back to his June 15th to June 29th starts, his four-seamer and his sinker were both hovering around 94.5 to 95 miles an hour. In his last start on July 27th, they were hovering around 91, 91.5. That's a huge drop-off and suggests that there might be something wrong. He might be having dead arm. There could be a more serious underlying injury below that. So that's one thing to be somewhat concerned with if you're a Cubs fan looking at what Michael Soroka can offer you. That the past couple starts, you've seen that velocity dip on basically all of his pitches, and that's something that I would definitely be concerned about. I want to shout out Shahadev Sharma on Twitter for pointing that out so I can deliver that information to you guys. The other thing to note is, yeah, it's kind of crazy that he's only 27, given that he made his debut in 2019, was a former top prospect, so it is really interesting to see how that has all played out, that he is relatively young, right? So there's still some potential that he hasn't really exactly unlocked everything that he needs to, so we'll see exactly what he does with the Cubs and how he evolves in his role and what exactly the Cubs want to do for him. I personally don't see him being anything more than a fifth starter for the Cubs, but again, who knows exactly what they have in mind. There are two prospects heading back to the Nationals in this deal, the highest ranked one being shortstop Ronny Cruz at only 18 years old. Cruz was the third round pick of the Cubs in the 2024 draft, and he actually had a deal to sign for $200,000 as a 16-year-old as an international free agent since he was born in the Dominican Republic, but that fell through, and it hasn't been reported what team actually offered him that contract. He ended up moving to Florida for his last 2 years of high school, committed to the University of Miami, before the Cubs somewhat surprisingly took him in the third round and signed him for an underslot bonus of $620,000, which meant they were able to sign other players for a little bit over the recommended slot. So Cruz, although he was drafted in the third round, wasn't necessarily rated as a third round talent by a lot of the industry experts around the MLB. Cruz is currently 6'2", 170, which gives scouts a lot to dream about when it comes to his power. He hasn't shown great ability to have good bat to ball skills yet. He's probably not going to hit for a ton of average, but he has the ability to have plus power, plus speed, and he most definitely has the ability to stick at shortstop. At 6'2", 170, again, there's a lot that you can book onto that frame, so that power potential is definitely there and something really interesting to look out on. The Cubs have actually said if he doesn't end up working out at shortstop, they're going to move him to center field, which is a still very difficult defensive position. So they don't even think he's going to have to move to third base or second base. He has a really good arm as well and good range. So if he ends up bulking up a little bit too much and not being able to handle shortstop, they don't think it's going to be too much that he can't handle center field. So they definitely view him as a very interesting prospect who has the potential to be a very good player at the major league level. Scouts got really excited about him at the MLB Draft Combine, which just ran for the first time last year, and he had some of the highest exit velocities, which is why the Cubs felt comfortable taking him in the third round, even if a lot of teams, including potentially even themselves, didn't necessarily rank him as a top prospect available in the third round. Cruz is definitely an exciting prospect and someone who has above average skills all around, minus, again, the hit tool, which is something that is definitely exciting. At 18, he's still very young and has a lot of room to grow, and he's performed decently so far in Rookie League for the Arizona Complex League Cubs with a slash line of 270, 314, 431. So he's not walking a ton. That's only 10 walks and 174 at bats, so 184 plate appearances. Striking out only 35 times as well, so there is a little bit of a lack of strikeouts, but a lack of walks. So just not swinging a ton, which is okay right now. Only 2 home runs, which is a little concerning in 174 plate appearances, but it does seem that he has that potential. He has that speed. He's hit 6 triples, 10 doubles. So right now, that's really translating into more gap power plus speed than it is to raw power in terms of home runs. The other player heading back to Washington in this deal is outfielder Christian Franklin, who is at 25, relatively old for a prospect. He actually was born after 2000, which you generally don't see with a lot of prospects nowadays. And sorry for people who now feel old because of that. He went to the University of Arkansas, and the 2021 fourth round pick by the Cubs is someone who definitely looks to be just an all around good player. He's not going to sell you on a specific skill that he's going to dominate at, but he's an above average defender, which allows him to be a plus asset on that side of the field, even if he can't necessarily hit well at the major league level. He spent 2024 at AA, but most of this year, actually all of this year, in AAA. Currently, his slash line is 265, 393, 427. He's walking a ton. That's 63 walks in just over 380 plate appearances. He's only struck out 80 times, 11 stolen bases. Not a lot of power with 8 home runs. That's somewhat to be expected. His arm strength is a little bit stronger than average. His power is a little bit less than average. He's really good at making sure he can take his walks, and his hit tool is average as well. He was left off the 40-man roster this past offseason, which meant that he was eligible to be picked in the Rule 5 draft. He didn't end up getting picked, but scouts really like his plate discipline and think he can be a solid contributor at the major league level. Maybe a fourth outfielder or a bottom of the lineup guy, but still a solid contributor nonetheless. He can play center, but he's most likely going to stick to right field. He's not a defensive liability in the outfield, but he's also not an elite defender, not someone you really want to stick in center field every day. So he's definitely more of a corner outfield spot, and it goes to show whether that offensive ability can tick up and really make it worth it that he's in that corner outfield spot, given that his defense is good, especially the arm, but not necessarily elite. We'll see, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him make his debut with the Washington Nationals sometime this year, if not right away. Now that we've talked about all the players in this deal, let's go ahead and give each team grades and see who actually made out well and who might be struggling a little bit. For the Cubs, I'm going to give this trade a grade of a C+. I don't know if it's necessarily needed right now. I think they definitely needed an upgrade to their rotation, but I think that was more important when they had pitchers that were injured, like Shota Imanaga, and now it just seems like, are you demoting Ben Brown or Cade Horton? Cade Horton has been really great the past couple weeks, same with Ben Brown. I don't know what exactly your plan is in order to fit Soroka into the rotation unless you're going to get an injury. Maybe you try and fit him in the bullpen, but the only two people who have options are Daniel Palencia, who right now is your closer, or Gavin Hollowell, who you can demote, but you also just promoted him up to the major leagues on Monday. So who knows exactly how they're going to end up doing that. Right now, I think it is valuable to add a piece, but I don't know if I love the addition. And I think the fact that they gave up two interesting pieces isn't necessarily the best sign for what exactly the Cubs are going to do. Ronny Cruz is a solid player. He's definitely a top 15 prospect in the organization in my mind. Baseball America had him at 17. I personally have him a little bit higher. Before the season, MLB Pipeline had him at 13. So I don't know. Christian Franklin is old. He could have maybe helped in the outfield if the Cubs really needed it, but I think with Hap and with Seiya Suzuki and Pete Crow Armstrong and Kyle Tucker, they're fine in the outfield. So I think that's a decent piece to trade away. I'd have no issue with them doing that, especially given that he's 25. So not the end of the world. Not to mention the drops in velocity that Soroka's had the past couple starts. I am very interested to see exactly how that's going to work out long term. And really, that's more like short term because he could be getting injured in the next couple starts, and we'll see exactly how that'll go. For the Nationals, I'm going to give this an A, and everything I just said about Franklin is why this is not an A plus. He's 25 years old, doesn't really have a standout tool. You're really getting a proximity play, and by the time the Nationals are competitive, there's a decent chance he's really not even going to be on the roster of a team that's really fighting for a playoff spot. Dalen Lyle isn't necessarily a standout player in the outfield. Alex Cole has struggled and is also going to be 30 very soon, so I understand why you're looking to potentially upgrade at the outfield spot. Jacob Young is their center fielder of the future. He is a defensive wizard, and although he doesn't necessarily hit a ton, his defensive value is immense. He's probably going to stick in center field for a long time. Of course, Dylan Cruz is now on the injured list, and they have a ton of outfield depth, so I don't really know exactly where Franklin is going to fit in long term. And then if you do trade Josh Bell, then okay, you have James Wood DHing maybe, and James Wood is not a bad defensive outfielder by any means. He definitely has the offensive prowess to DH, but then what? You have Franklin DH? It just doesn't seem like he has a natural fit here unless you're getting rid of one of your other outfielders who are all replacement level, but I don't know if they're necessarily superstars. I have a little bit of hesitation about exactly what they're doing, but I don't completely hate the Nationals front office, what they've done since they fired Mike Rizzo. I think there's some really interesting things that they've done to maneuver around things, and we'll see how a new GM deals with their new acquisitions in a little bit. And I think if they had a more stability at their GM position, I'd be a little more willing to actually go ahead and give them an A plus. But I think there's some things that are still pretty hesitant on my part. If they're willing to protect Franklin for the Rule 5 draft, which it seems like they probably are, then more power to them, but I don't know if I necessarily see exactly where he fits in with this. And Ronny Cruz is far enough away that it's not a big deal that you have someone like CJ Abrams playing short and Jacob Young playing center field. Maybe he's a trade chip when you are contending, so it will be very interesting to see how they end up managing that. But I don't hate that as a lottery pick. I think, honestly, I probably would have just traded Soroka for Cruz straight up, so Christian Franklin is a nice little lottery piece as well, and I think they did a good job on this deal. Thank you for getting to the end of the video. I hope you learned a lot about all these players and are super excited about the last 24 hours or so of trade deadline coverage. Thank you again for watching to the end. Subscribe if you made it this far, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Without further ado, I will see you in the very next video.